The studio lights cut through the darkness like surgical precision, brighter than warm, sharper than inviting. Every surface gleamed with the cold efficiency of broadcast equipment designed for moments that matter. The audience sits in perfect stillness, hundreds of people packed into tiered seating, their breath held like a collective inhale before thunder. Nobody speaks. Nobody moves. The silence in the room feels heavier than absence. It feels like anticipation crystallized into something almost unbearable. Backstage, the rhythm of footsteps approaches. Slow, deliberate. Each step lands with the weight of intention, the measured cadence of someone who has commanded rooms for decades. A production assistant adjusts a wireless microphone, fingers trembling slightly as the device clips onto fabric. The room seems to contract around those approaching footsteps, the air thickening with each passing second until breathing feels like effort. The graphics on the massive screens behind the stage cycle through promotional material, cycling, then landing on the familiar late-night branding. A deep blue wash covers the set, punctuated by warm accent lighting that creates the illusion of intimate conversation space. Tonight feels different. Tonight, the usual playful energy that defines this studio has been replaced by something electric and uncertain. Camera operators check their angles one final time, their expressions caught between professional readiness and genuine curiosity about what is about to unfold. Every crew member understands that what happens in the next hour will generate conversation, analysis, and controversy across every platform that matters. The temperature in the room seems to drop several degrees, or perhaps that is simply the weight of expectation pressing against every exposed surface. Someone near the front row shifts in their seat, and the sound of movement echoes through the studio like distant thunder. The monitors show the green room feed, two figures preparing for an encounter that neither side has publicly acknowledged, yet everyone present feels the approaching collision. The countdown clock appears on every screen, ticking backward with mechanical indifference to the human drama about to unfold. He enters from stage left, and the room responds before he speaks a word. The audience rises as one organism, applause erupting with the force of a wave breaking against shoreline. Cameras swing with practiced precision to capture the moment, their movements synchronized by years of muscle memory and technical choreography. He moves with the particular stride that has become his signature, short steps that somehow cover ground efficiently, head slightly tilted, as if assessing every element of the space he enters. His jacket fits precisely as intended, every seam aligned with military precision. The movement carries an energy that demands acknowledgement from everyone present. Security personnel flank the path without appearing to flank anything, their positioning natural and their vigilance invisible unless you know where to look. He takes the stage and the applause intensifies, rising like a wave that refuses to crest. He stands at the center mark, arms slightly away from his body, a posture that communicates ownership of the moment and the space and perhaps something more. The studio lights create shadows that shift with each breath, and he surveys the room with eyes that have assessed thousands of audiences across decades of public life. His jaw sets in a particular configuration that people who have watched him for years recognize immediately. Something is about to happen. Something has already been decided. The audience settles into their seats with visible reluctance, the final notes of applause fading like a receding tide. Camera 1 captures the wide shot that will open the segment, and everyone waits for the moment to crystallize into broadcast history. The host emerges from the opposite entrance, his posture deliberately casual in a way that communicates its own kind of control. He wears the uniform of late-night television, jacket, collar, the careful presentation of someone who has hosted this particular stage hundreds of times. But tonight his walk carries additional weight, additional intention. He approaches the iconic desk and settles into the chair that has been his professional home for years, and the audience offers warm applause that contains an undercurrent of excitement. The monitors display the familiar two-shot framing that late-night audiences recognize instinctively, and the cameras adjust for the new composition. The host crosses his legs with deliberate casualness, fingers drumming once against the desk surface before falling still. His eyes carry the particular brightness that signals either amusement or anticipation, or both, simultaneously. The studio falls into the specific quiet that precedes conversation, and every camera focuses with renewed intensity on the space between these two figures. A production assistant cues the opening graphics remotely, and the familiar late-night theme music swells through the studio speakers for exactly 4 seconds before fading to silence. The transition works precisely as intended, announcing the arrival of something significant while clearing space for what matters most. The host leans forward slightly, and the movement creates a subtle shift in the power geometry of the shot. His expression carries the careful neutrality of someone who has prepared extensively for this moment, who has run through scenarios and contingencies until the mental preparation became indistinguishable from instinct. The cameras capture the approach vector, the trajectory that will define the next several minutes, and every person in that studio understands that they are witnessing the opening movement of something larger. The host speaks first, his voice carrying the familiar warmth of late-night television, and the words land in the space between them like opening moves in a game that both players have studied extensively. The words contain a challenge wrapped in humor, an acknowledgement that the room holds more tension than typical late-night fare, and an invitation to engage that simultaneously functions as a dare. The audience responds with laughter that contains nervous edges, and the host settles back in his chair with the satisfied posture of someone who has landed an opening jab. He speaks the words with the precise calibration of someone who has spent years learning how to control rooms, how to manage tensions, how to navigate the narrow space between comedy and confrontation. The phrase lands exactly as intended, drawing scattered applause and nervous laughter from an audience that has not yet determined whether this moment represents entertainment or something more significant. He waits for the response, and the waiting itself communicates power. He has initiated the exchange, established the terms, and created the framework through which all subsequent interaction will be filtered. The cameras capture the pause with cinematic precision, and the moment stretches like a held breath in a room full of people who have forgotten how to exhale. If this opening exchange set your heart racing, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. Moments like these don't stay quiet for long, and the next move belongs to someone who knows exactly how to play the game. The response arrives like a blade drawn slowly from its sheath, precise, deliberate, and designed to draw blood while maintaining the appearance of casual conversation. He speaks the words with the particular cadence that audiences across the world have come to recognize as uniquely his, each syllable landing with the weight of intention. The phrasing carries multiple layers of meaning simultaneously, functioning as humor on the surface while excavating something sharper beneath. The studio audience processes the words in real time, reactions rippling through the assembled viewers like wind through tall grass. Some laugh, nervous, uncertain, caught between appreciation and discomfort. Others sit rigid, their expressions frozen in configurations that suggest they have not yet determined how to respond to what they have just witnessed. The host absorbs the words with visible composure, his face maintaining the professional neutrality that his training demands. But something shifts in his eyes, subtle, quick, visible only to those watching with intense focus. His shoulders adjust by perhaps half an inch, a movement so small that standard definition cameras might miss it entirely. The studio lights illuminate the adjustment with clinical precision, and camera 2 captures the moment from the angle that makes every micro-expression visible to viewers at home. He responds with his own carefully calibrated phrase, humor wrapping around steel, and the audience releases the breath they have been holding with a collective exhale that sounds almost like relief. The laughter that follows carries genuine appreciation mixed with the specific tension that accompanies moments when humor and politics collide without warning. He leans into the space between them, and the movement draws attention like gravity draws matter. His hand gestures carry the particular energy of someone who has spent decades using physical communication to emphasize verbal points, each movement designed for maximum visual impact in the frame that camera 1 captures. The words flow with apparent spontaneity that conceals hours of preparation, and the audience follows each phrase with the rapt attention of people who understand they are witnessing something they will discuss later. He pivots smoothly to a new angle of attack, and the phrase lands with the force of a sudden gust of wind, unexpected, powerful, leaving no time for preparation. The studio audience reacts in fragments, some amused after a brief hesitation, others conspicuously silent in ways that communicate volumes without speaking. The host receives the blow with professional composure, nodding once in acknowledgement before responding with his own counter. The verbal exchange continues to escalate with each passing moment, and the cameras capture every detail of the power dance unfolding on the set. He stands from the desk area, and the movement commands attention like a director calling action on a film set. His walk carries the particular energy of someone moving towards something they have planned for weeks, maybe longer. The audience watches with the intensity of people witnessing a car accident in slow motion, unable to look away despite their uncertainty about what happens next. He circles the desk with deliberate pace, each step placing him in new spatial relationship to the host, and the cameras track the movement with precision that suggests they have choreographed this possibility. He stops at a specific point that creates optimal visual composition for the primary cameras, and the positioning communicates something beyond simple stagecraft. The words he speaks carry the weight of accumulated grievance and strategic intent, and the studio audience absorbs them with the particular stillness that accompanies moments when humor has clearly exceeded its boundaries. The host stands to meet him, and the two figures occupy the frame together in an image that will circulate across every platform before the segment concludes. The laughter from the audience has transformed into something else entirely, uncertain, fragmented, the sound of people processing an interaction that has exceeded their expectations in ways they cannot yet categorize. He returns to his seat with the posture of someone who believes they have won the opening exchange, and the cameras document his satisfaction with unflattering precision. The segment continues, and the audience watches with the heightened attention of people who understand the stakes have been raised significantly since the segment began. The host pauses. The pause itself becomes the message. He lifts his coffee cup with the deliberate care of someone performing a ritual that requires complete concentration, takes a single sip, and sets the cup down with precision that creates a small sound in the suddenly very quiet studio. The audience leans forward in their seats without consciously deciding to do so, their bodies responding to the shift in atmospheric pressure that the silence creates. The host crosses his hands on the desk in front of him, fingers interlaced, and the posture communicates patience accumulated over years of navigating difficult conversations. His eyes carry the particular brightness of someone who has just received a gift they did not expect, new information that changes the calculation in ways that matter. He speaks slowly, each word landing with the weight of careful selection, and the words establish something that was not established before this moment. The studio audience processes the shift in real time, their faces registering the change as clearly as weather changes across a landscape. He describes the moment with precision that suggests extensive preparation, and the description lands in the room like a stone dropped into still water, ripples spreading outward through every person present. The cameras capture the ripples in close-up detail, the slight parting of lips, the forward tilt of torsos, the specific quality of attention that transforms a late-night studio into a space of intense focus. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. The words carry their own force, amplified by the silence that precedes them and the attention that follows. He presents the first piece of information with the casual precision of someone who has delivered thousands of presentations across different contexts, and the information arrives like a key turning in a lock that was waiting specifically for this moment. The studio audience reacts with a sound that cannot be categorized as either applause or gasp, but somehow contains elements of both. He describes the specific context with additional detail, and the description adds another layer to what has already been established, making the initial revelation feel like the first floor of a building that has several more stories to go. He pauses again, and the second pause feels different from the first, longer, heavier, carrying the specific weight of information that has changed the room's understanding of itself. The cameras capture the shift in his opponent's posture, and the documentation will later become evidence of something that viewers at home cannot yet fully understand but sense approaching with the inevitability of storm fronts. The host knows exactly what he is doing. The strategic patience communicates more power than any verbal attack could manage, and the audience recognizes the dynamic even as they participate in it. He reaches for his water glass, takes a measure. Drink, and sets it down with the careful placement of someone who treats every moment of this segment as part of a larger architecture. The audience waits without being told to wait, their attention held by the implicit promise that more is coming, that this moment represents the opening movement of something larger than the words already spoken. He speaks again, and the words function as a bridge between what was revealed and what comes next. He has planted something in the room, and everyone present feels it growing in real time. The silence around him feels less like absence and more like presence, active, strategic, carrying the specific weight of someone who has decided to weaponize patience against someone who has never learned to wait. The cameras continue documenting everything, and the footage they capture will later be analyzed by millions of viewers searching for the exact moment when everything changed. He glances down at a small card on the desk in front of him, a gesture so casual it almost escapes notice, yet every person present understands the card contains something important. He does not read from it immediately. He holds it for a moment that stretches like taffy, and the holding itself communicates significance. The audience watches him hold the card, and their breathing seems to synchronize with the deliberate rhythm of his restraint. He looks up from the card, meets the camera with eyes that carry calculation and purpose, and speaks a single sentence that will generate more conversation than any joke or confrontation this show has produced in recent memory. Before he answers that question, let's talk about why this matters. Subscribe for more moments that change everything. The shift arrives like lightning following thunder that hasn't quite finished echoing. He speaks with a calm that carries more force than volume ever could, and the words land in the space between them with the precision of a surgeon making an incision. The studio audience absorbs the words with the particular stillness of people who have just understood something significant, and the cameras capture the collective recognition spreading through the room like temperature dropping across a landscape. He pauses to let the words settle, and the pause itself functions as punctuation that emphasizes what has just been said. The words create a frame that transforms everything that came before them, and the transformation feels simultaneously surprising and inevitable in retrospect. He builds upon the foundation he has just established with the careful patience of someone constructing something that must bear significant weight, and each new sentence adds another structural element to the edifice he is building in real time. The audience watches him build, and their attention holds like a held breath that refuses to release. He describes the specific sequence of events with detail that suggests extensive preparation, and the description carries the particular quality of testimony, measured, deliberate, each word selected for maximum impact and minimum ambiguity. The cameras capture the visible change in his opponent's expression, and the documentation shows something that viewers at home will replay dozens of times, searching for the exact micro-moment when recognition arrived. He introduces a new element with the casual precision of someone who has delivered difficult news thousands of times across different contexts, and the new element lands in the room like a depth charge dropped into shallow water. The explosion that follows changes the acoustic quality of the studio, laughter and gasps and murmurs creating a sound that defies simple categorization. He builds upon the explosion with additional detail that deepens the impact, and the depth of the detail makes the initial revelation feel even more significant by comparison. He has accomplished something that few television guests ever manage. He has shifted the frame through which all subsequent interaction will be understood, and the shift feels irreversible from the moment it occurs. He pauses again, and the pause carries the specific quality of someone who has said something important and understands the importance of letting it breathe before continuing. The cameras capture the room's response to the pause, and the footage shows an audience suspended in a state of heightened anticipation. He speaks again, and the words carry the weight of someone who has decided to commit fully to a position that will either succeed spectacularly or fail spectacularly. He introduces a specific element that reframes the opening exchange entirely, and the reframe transforms the interpretation of everything that came before it. The studio audience processes the transformation in real time, their faces showing the visible effort of updating their understanding mid-moment. He delivers the reframe with the confidence of someone who has rehearsed this exact moment hundreds of times, and the C. Confidence communicates competence that the audience reads as authority. He establishes a contrast between two narratives, and the contrast creates a fork in the road through which all subsequent conversation must travel. He has won something without raising his voice, without changing his posture, without doing anything that could be characterized as attack. He has simply told a story that recontextualizes everything, and the recontextualization feels like a door opening in a wall that appeared solid moments before. The room holds its breath. Everything changes in the next 3 minutes. Don't look away. He reaches into the folder on the desk before him with the deliberate care of someone handling evidence in a courtroom, and the cameras track every movement with the precision that only broadcast equipment can provide. He extracts the first document and holds it up to the light, and the gesture carries the weight of ritual, the formal presentation of something that matters. The audience watches him hold the document, and their attention holds with his. He describes the document with the measured cadence of someone who has prepared extensively for this exact moment, and the description lands in the room like a foundation being poured. He reads specific language from the document, and the words emerge slowly with deliberate emphasis that makes each phrase feel like an event unto itself. The cameras capture the audience's reaction to the reading, and the footage shows faces frozen in configurations of surprise and recognition. He sets the first document down with careful precision and reaches for the second, and the reaching itself communicates the structure he has built, that the first document establishes something, that the second builds upon it, that a third and perhaps a fourth await. He describes the second document with the same measured care, and the description adds new layers to the foundation already laid. He introduces a specific detail from the second document that reframes the initial presentation, and the reframing creates a moment of visible recalculation across faces in the studio audience. He pauses to let the recalculation complete, and the pause functions as dramatic punctuation that emphasizes the significance of what has just occurred. He turns to a new page in his notes with the deliberate rhythm of someone who has mapped this exact sequence of reveals across weeks of preparation, and the sequence itself creates a structure that viewers follow without consciously deciding to follow. He introduces a third element that builds upon both previous elements, and the building creates an edifice that feels increasingly impossible to dismantle. He describes the third element with additional detail that deepens the impact created by the first two, and the depth of description makes the edifice feel more solid with each passing moment. He references a specific moment from the opening exchange, and the reference functions as a callback that demonstrates how much has changed in the intervening minutes. The audience remembers the opening moment because the cameras captured it, because they experienced it live, because it has already become part of their understanding of this evening. But now the reference reframes the memory entirely, and the reframed memory creates a cognitive dissonance that holds attention more effectively than any simple revelation could manage. He introduces a visual element, a photograph, a document, a piece of graphic evidence, and the visual arrival amplifies everything that has come before it. The cameras capture the visual element with optimal framing, and the footage will later become the image most associated with this entire segment. He describes what viewers should notice in the visual element, and the description guides attention toward details that might otherwise escape notice. He pauses again, and the pause feels like a breath before diving into deeper water. He speaks with the measured confidence of someone who has just demonstrated something that cannot be denied, and the confidence communicates authority that the audience reads as truth. The evidence keeps coming. Subscribe now, this story isn't over. He reaches for another document, and the reaching itself signals that the evidence presentation has not yet exhausted its structure. The fourth document emerges from the folder with the same ceremonial care as the previous ones, and the audience watches with the particular attention of people who have learned to expect significant content and have not yet been disappointed. He describes the fourth document with additional specificity, and the specificity creates a texture of detail that feels increasingly difficult to dismiss or reinterpret. He introduces a timeline element, and the timeline creates a structure of sequence that makes the earlier evidence feel less like isolated incidents and more like connected events in a larger pattern. He describes the timeline why. The precision of someone who has mapped these connections across weeks of careful preparation, and the mapping creates a web that becomes increasingly difficult to escape. He pauses to let the web settle, and the settling creates a moment of stillness that amplifies everything that has come before it. He introduces a witness element, someone whose presence in this segment has not been announced, whose involvement represents a surprise that the audience could not have anticipated. The cameras track the witness entering the frame, and the tracking creates a visual rhythm that builds anticipation with each passing second. He describes the witness with carefully calibrated language, and the description establishes credibility before the witness speaks a single word. The witness takes position in the frame, and the positioning creates a triangular composition that includes both principles and the third element that changes the geometry entirely. He speaks with a measured cadence of testimony, and the cadence creates a rhythm that holds the audience's attention with the force of gravity. He describes specific events with detail that suggests personal knowledge, and the personal knowledge creates a connection between abstract evidence and lived experience that resonates differently than documents alone could manage. He pauses at a critical moment, and the pause creates space that feels heavy with everything unsaid but understood. He completes the testimony with a final phrase that lands in the room like a verdict, delivered by a jury that has just finished deliberation. The room has not recovered. It will not recover. Keep watching. His posture changes. The cameras have documented the change from the beginning, but the change accelerates now in ways that become impossible to ignore. His shoulders move backward by perhaps an inch, and the movement communicates retreat in a body language vocabulary that every viewer understands instinctively. His hands move to the desk's surface with the particular energy of someone searching for support, and the searching creates a visual metaphor that the audience reads as desperation seeking foundation. He speaks, and the words emerge faster than the words that came before them, the accelerated pace communicating something that the content of the words cannot alone convey. He attempts to establish new ground, new positioning, a new frame that might escape the web that has been constructed around him. He speaks with the specific energy of someone who has just recognized that their original strategy has failed and must improvise new strategy without preparation time. The audience watches the improvisation, and their faces register the recognition that something has broken in the performance. He attempts a joke, strategic humor deployed as escape route, a method of disrupting the serious frame that has been established against him. The joke lands with the specific flatness of humor that arrives too late, that fails to accomplish its strategic purpose, because the moment for successful humor has passed without return. He pauses again, and the pause carries the specific quality of someone who has run out of prepared material and must face the moment with whatever remains. He speaks again, and the words carry the strain of someone working hard to maintain composure that is visibly slipping despite the effort. The cameras capture the strain in unflattering detail, sweat appearing at temples, throat moving with visible swallows, eyes carrying the particular brightness of adrenaline response. He attempts a pivot, and the pivot represents his final strategic effort to escape the trap that has been constructed around him. He references something that he believes will reframe the conversation, and the reference lands in the room with the sound of someone grabbing at a rope that may not be anchored to anything. He speaks with increasing volume, and the volume increase communicates desperation more effectively than any physical gesture could manage. He attempts to establish certainty in a voice that has lost its capacity for certainty, and the attempted establishment fails visibly in the space between intent and execution. He pauses again, and the pause carries the specific quality of someone who has just recognized that further speaking will only deepen the collapse already in progress. He sits back in his chair with the defeated posture of someone who has exhausted their options, and the posture change communicates what verbal communication no longer can. The studio audience watches the collapse with the particular attention of people witnessing something that cannot be stopped, something unfolding with the inevitability of physics. The cameras capture everything with clinical precision, documenting a defeat that will replay millions of times across platforms that have not yet been invented when this segment concludes. He attempts one final statement, and the statement emerges with the specific quality of someone speaking more to the historical record than to anyone present in the room. The statement fails to achieve its purpose, landing in the room with the sound of conclusion rather than continuation. He falls silent, and the silence carries the weight of something that has ended. The host remains composed in his chair, and the contrast between the two figures in the frame communicates the outcome more clearly than any analysis could manage. The studio audience holds the silence for a moment that stretches like a held breath, and then releases it with a collective exhale that sounds like something between relief and awe. The aftermath begins before the segment officially concludes. Social media platforms ignite with the first clips extracted from the broadcast, and the clips spread with the viral velocity that accompanies moments of significant cultural impact. Within minutes of the segment's conclusion, the specific phrases that will define this encounter circulate across every platform that matters to the conversation about public life. Comment sections fill with analysis and reaction, each contribution attempting to articulate what viewers have just witnessed and why it matters. The host's phone shows notifications accumulating at a rate that suggests the servers handling the traffic require additional attention. Production assistants exchange glances that communicate shared recognition of something significant just completed. The host stands from the desk with the composed energy of someone who has just finished work that will define a significant portion of their professional legacy. He exchanges brief words with production staff, his voice carrying the particular cadence of someone discussing technical matters while their mind processes something larger. Backstage, The other principal gathers his materials with the hurried efficiency of someone who needs distance from the space where defeat occurred. His security detail forms around him with practiced positioning, and the formation creates a visual barrier between himself and the crew members who are already discussing what they have just documented. The audience members exit the studio with the animated energy of people who have witnessed something they need to process through conversation, their phones already open to platforms where immediate reaction feels necessary. The cameras power down with the systematic clicking of equipment returning to standby, and the studio lights shift to the warmer configuration that signals the production day has concluded. The monitors display final graphics that will never air, promotional content, prepared for a segment that has been completely transformed by what just occurred within it. The desk remains set for what will now become historical footage. 2 chairs, 2 water glasses, 1 folder that contains evidence that will generate conversation for weeks to come. The story doesn't end when the cameras stop. The real consequences are just beginning. Subscribe now to follow every development in stories that reshape everything we thought we understood. Within hours, the segment has been clipped, analyzed, annotated, and distributed across every platform where conversation about public life occurs. News organizations request access to the full footage for broadcast segments that will air within 24 hours. Social media algorithms amplify the most shareable moments with the mechanical indifference of systems designed to maximize engagement regardless of content quality. Commentators begin the work of interpretation, each offering frameworks that attempt to explain what viewers have witnessed and why it unfolded as it did. The host prepares for the following night's broadcast with the knowledge that his audience expects acknowledgement of what occurred. That silence will be read as either regret or strategic evasion. The other principal's communications team releases a statement that attempts to reframe the narrative before the reframing becomes impossible, and the statement generates its own cycle of response and counter-response. The studio prepares for the following day's production schedule, crew members resetting equipment and adjusting lighting for content that will feel anticlimactic by comparison. The internet never forgets, and the footage will resurface in contexts that its original viewers never anticipated. Educational, analytical, entertainment, historical. Each reappearance generates new audiences who encounter the segment for the first time and experience the same sequence of surprise, recognition, and reassessment that the original audience navigated in real time. The segment has become a document of something that cannot be unhappened, evidence of a moment that will anchor countless future conversations about power, media, and the particular dynamics that emerge when 2 figures with significant public presence occupy shared space designed for conversation. The cameras captured everything, the internet preserved everything, and the conversation about what it all means has only just begun. What you witnessed tonight changes everything we thought we knew. Don't go anywhere. There's more to this story, and we're not done telling it.